Welcome to Dear Business Coach, the podcast. My name's Elizabeth, coming to you from the Walker Consulting Works studio. Find one thing to move your business forward today. With conversations, spotlights, interviews, articles, and free resources. Listen, follow, and subscribe on social media. Dear Business Coach Podcast. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. And don't forget Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. All it takes sometimes is one little thing to move your business forward today. Okay. Well, welcome to the Dear Business Coach podcast. Jesse Blount, is that how I say it?
Blount, but everybody messes that up. That's okay. You could actually call me DJ SKoob.
Right, DJ SKoob. Very good. Oh, well, DJ SKoob, where did you get that name?
Well, there's a kind of a story behind that, actually. When I first started my entrepreneur adventure, I wanted to be a karaoke DJ and a music DJ. So the only problem I had absolutely nothing. No equipment, no microphones, no nothing. So I was like, hey, let me just put a thing out on GoFundMe and people will just give me money. Wrong, that didn't happen. I think I only got a couple $100s in a couple months, and that was my mom helping out. So in that works, I came up with the tagline DJ SKoob because I could do the perfect Scooby-Doo voice and laugh. So I can go, wee, row. And I just made that part of my branding. And now here I am, DJ SKoob. I'm doing something else now. I'm doing the podcast and doing coaching. But I wanted to keep the DJ SKoob because it was so dear to my heart that I found that for myself.
Yeah, I would too. It's fun. So I don't know if I would be able to discern you from the cartoon if I wasn't looking at you making the effect.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I've heard you mention that story once or twice, and I've also heard you ask your guests if they're a SKoob believer. What is a SKoob believer?
So this is something I have to explain a lot, but once you actually get the gist of it, it's really easy to remember. So I am DJ SKoob. So anybody that follows me, that likes my stuff, that is part of my tribe, I call SKoob believers. It's very similar to Stan Lee and his True Believers, because that's what he called his tribe, was True Believers. So I took an additive of that and called it SKoob believers. So whenever I ask somebody, if you're a SKoob believer, do you believe in everything that I'm doing? Do you believe in me? Do you believe in my processes? And hopefully I get a yes.
Right. So before we continue, I am practicing getting the introduction down on the podcast, right? So as a host, I keep telling everybody that when you're on a podcast, you want to tell people, where can we find you?
So you're officially asking me that question. Is that what's going on? Yes. Okay.
What's your one-liner, Jesse?
My one-liner. Swordfish. No, okay. So so basically you can find me on any of the platforms out there. If you want to find everything that has to do with anything that I'm doing, I actually have a link tree, and that's linktr.ee or linktree / DJ SKoob. So that's DJ SKoob. I couldn't put the C in there because I'd get in trouble. So it's SKoob.
Cool. Okay. Now, your website where we can find the podcast is TUE Podcast, correct?
TUEpodcast.net, not com, net, but yes, that's where you find me.
Right. And I can go to linktree / DJ SKoob to find that.
Find that along with my YouTube channel, all my socials, all the good stuff.
Great. All right. Well, let's go back in time a little bit. You started this podcast as a business venture, I think, if I'm just listening to parts of conversations that I've heard where you talk about your story too. But also you started your podcast on top of a full-time job.
Actually, on top of 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
Yes. So my other job is I am a server at a restaurant called Getting Basted. And I'm also an EVS worker in a hospital, which is a fancy way of me saying I take trash around all day. But the nice thing about that is I can put an earbud in. Nobody bothers me because I'm the trash guy, so nobody's going to bother me because I'm carrying yucky stuff. So I put earbuds in and I constantly educate myself 8 hours a day while I'm walking around the hospital. So even though it's a full-time job and it does take time, it actually gives me an opportunity to educate myself as I go along the day.
Yeah, well, podcasting is that's how I learn about things. I'm listening to a podcast all day long, sometimes in my sleep, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But that is part of, the audio form. I in school sometimes we would talk about as kids what kind of what how you learn, right? Are you a visual learner? Are you an audio learner? Do you need to do things with your hands to learn? And I guess it depends, but really podcasting, I guess I guess I'm an audio learner. What about you?
I'm definitely an audio learner just because if I read anything, I tend to want to fall asleep real quick. It just bores me. But for some reason, if somebody's talking to me and putting those words in my ears, I could imagine and visualize what's happening around me a lot better than I would because like I don't know what it is, maybe my eyes get tired or whatever because I'm about 2 or 3 pages in and you know so, but audio for some reason, it really piques my interest. It turns my brain on. It fires those synapses in my brain, and I can actually imagine myself doing whatever these people are talking about, whether it be working on an email list, whether it be, ideas for a podcast. And then if something really does strike me, I could take my phone out and take a quick note. Okay, I want to do this, and then put it in and continue listening, and there's no real interruption. So, yeah, I'm definitely audio, and I'm a video too. I really like learning from videos. I've learned podcasting through video for free. When I first started doing this, I learned about podcasting through Pat Flynn, and watching his videos on how to podcast, I got everything I needed to start my own podcast. So it's been pretty amazing.
So it is amazing. Are you still using free services, free editing? Are you still using the same basic equipment you started with?
So as far as like physical equipment, yes, I still have the same camera, I still have the same microphone, still the same lighting, still the same laptop. But as far as services, I've learned that if you want to invest in yourself and become a little bit better, then you do have to spend a little bit, not a lot. It doesn't have to be thousands upon thousands of dollars to get the best equipment, to get the best software, anything. Just for like $15 a month or $30 a month, you can get some stuff that really makes good quality work. One of my favorite ones is Descript. I use Descript for everything when it comes to my audio, when it comes to my video, when it comes to my transcripts. It's all done automatically, all very, very quickly. And because of that, I've actually been able to get my processes down where I can actually put a podcast out twice a week and still work two full-time jobs on top of the podcasting, top of entrepreneur coaching, on top of editing for another podcast. So that's everything that I do.
Okay, so you're editing for another podcast too?
Correct.
Wow. So goodness gracious. So I would like to ask you, well, let me back up a little bit. When I looked at your LinkedIn profile
Hmm.
originally, I noticed that in your resume area or experience area, I saw sales. Just told us that you have two full-time jobs currently. So, were you in sales when you started this podcast, or where was that in your journey?
So sales have been most of my life, actually. And I think my first sales experience was I was 6 years old, 6 or 7 years old. My parents gave me $10 and let me loose in a flea market. And I came back with all kinds of stuff, cameras and all, little Instamatic cameras. And I still had $5 left. So I was like, why don't I take all this stuff and throw a blanket out on my lawn and have a garage sale or a yard sale or whatever. And I made money doing that. And it just kind of stemmed from there. When I was in junior high and high school, I was constantly top sales in the magazine, the magazine sales that we had, and the candy bar sales and all that. I was constantly top sales in that. So I took that experience and went into car sales, and I was in car sales for over 16 years. On top of other sales experience I had, like I sold water filtration systems, cell phones, long distance service, um, all kinds of sales. So sales has been in my blood for gosh knows how long. I have family that were car salesmen, and that kind of thing. And it was just amazing to me how sales produce so much, but how many lives you can touch by doing sales, learning about new people, learning about different aspects of people, and their likes and dislikes, and just talking to them and finding out all kinds of great things about life just by talking to random people that come in and say, "Hey, can I buy that from you?" Sure. Tell me about yourself. In normal conversation. And I've taken all that experience up to the point and mashed it down into what we see now in the Undiscovered Entrepreneur podcast. So I talk to brand new entrepreneurs that are just getting started in their entrepreneur venture, and I want to learn about them. And even though they're new, they still have a lot to offer us as far as experiences, failures, how to overcome these failures, goals that they could set from the struggles that they have that we can all learn from and learn how to start an entrepreneur adventure.
This is Elizabeth reading you a sponsor ad, The Power of Laughter, coming to you in Roanoke, Virginia at the Jefferson Center. This is a masterclass with Clayton Fletcher, hosted by yours truly. Okay, over on the other side of the Dear Business Coach podcast, here is the Walker Consulting Works studio. And with Walker Consulting Works, I am presenting to you Clayton Fletcher and his masterclass on October 18th, 2024. That's a Friday at 11 a.m. It's a full day seminar. Learn from an international professional stand-up comedy headliner what comedians know that all business people should know. This is based on the #1 book on Amazon, The ROI of LOL, that he co-authored with Steve Cody. And Clayton was voted Best of the Fest at Stockholm Comedy Festival and can be heard daily on his own podcast, Tournament Poker Edge, Sirius XM's Laugh USA, and Jamie Foxx's Foxhole stations. Clayton can also be seen on the Ivy League of Comedy Live from the Emlyn Theater on Amazon Prime, Hulu's Comedy Brew, AXS TV's Gotham Comedy Live, Comcast's Who's Laughing Now, MSNBC's Your Business, Fox's Fox News Saturday Night, hosted by Kennedy, and ESPN's World Series of Poker. Clayton Fletcher is very busy. His new special, Middle Child Syndrome, is available on all streaming platforms, and his book, ROI of LOL, recently debuted at #1 on Amazon's business charts. So this is a masterclass hosted by me, Elizabeth Walker, host and producer of the Dear Business Coach podcast and producer and owner at Walker Consulting Works. So you can catch this event one day only in the beautiful Jefferson Center Historical Building in downtown Roanoke, Virginia. I will have catered lunch, morning coffee, and tea. And what you want to think about here is bringing your team. Get in touch with me. I'm Elizabeth, and my email address is walkerconsultingworks@gmail.com. Please check out at Walker Consulting Works YouTube channel for the full interview with Mr. Clayton Fletcher about his workshop and the work he does in The Power of Laughter, his masterclass. Looking to see you there. About people, you learn about life, and you can get into some really fascinating conversations and connect with people. So I gather that one of the things you're really good at, that good salespeople do, is learn how to ask questions. Are you good at asking questions?
I certainly hope so, because that's pretty much 90% of my podcast. But I've learned that it's not so much as making the money, but making the connections. The money comes after. And then how you make those connections is asking questions, asking genuinely curiosity questions, not just like questions out of a book or something that you heard somebody else say, but be genuinely curious about that person and what they do and how they do it and what their struggles are doing that. And I'm learning, even now I'm learning that more and more, how to ask the right questions to get to learn about more people.
So, right. And so when you're talking to an entrepreneur that you're highlighting, as in your show is called it, The Undiscovered Entrepreneur, Do you find that when you start asking folks to be on your show, that they feel like, well, because I'm a new entrepreneur, I'm not really sure what to say, or or are they shy?
Yeah, I do find that every once in a while where it's somebody that's never been on a podcast before. And that's actually some of my favorite type of entrepreneurs because I'm breaking new ground for them the first time they've been on a platform. And that's one of the reasons why I put this platform together to give an opportunity to new entrepreneurs to get onto a platform without having to make a 5, 6 figure income, without having to have 10, 15 years of experience under the belt. I think everybody has some sort of gift that they could give us to help us along in our entrepreneur adventure. And I never had that when I got started. When I started, like I was talking about earlier, the karaoke DJ and the music DJ, nobody would take me seriously because I was new. Even before, when I was younger, nobody would take me seriously because I was young. I want to give people out there the opportunity that I didn't have growing up and becoming an entrepreneur. So that's why I made my podcast, is to give those people a chance that nobody else would. The same chance that I wanted to have when I was growing up.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I am finding that some of the most fascinating conversations are from people who um, haven't had a chance to be in an interview setting before, and I talk about that a lot. So um, I hear through your podcast when you're starting to unfold into a conversation with an undiscovered entrepreneur, there's a zone that starts to happen between you and that person, and I mean, I would think that person has been sharing their expertise over a podcast for years. I wouldn't think that they have not done this before, or that they would be considered an undiscovered entrepreneur, right? So when you started your podcast, was there an element of, let me put myself in the presence of other people so I can learn too?
It's a learning process no matter what you do. I mean, even from started to now, I still learn from the people that I talk to. So there's always a learning process. Even now.
Hmm.
When I first started, I did have a certain set of questions that I tried to guideline my podcast through, but they're just guidelines. They're just to make sure that things progress in a specific type of way. But as I've gotten, I think almost going on 3 years now in podcasting, I still have those questions, but I'm starting to realize that during the normal conversation, I have other questions that I could ask to dig a little bit deeper on a specific subject that comes up, and then I could ask those questions. And I just use those other questions I have now as kind of a backup. If things start to slow down a little bit, I can start a new conversation. But having those guidelines first and learning with those questions first, how to ask questions, how to ask correct questions, gave me the ability to learn. And through the different interviews that I've had and that kind of thing, I've learned how to come up with different questions besides the guideline ones that I have now. That way it stays fresh, it stays flowy, it stays moving, it has a good feel to it. So I think that's how we get that flow, is just asking, like I said before, being genuinely curious about the person that's in front of you.
So when someone comes onto your podcast and, like you said, they have an opportunity to get on a platform that, number one, maybe they haven't broadcast themselves like this, right? You never know where your podcast episode's going to land. And once it's released, it goes all over the place. And you just never know when somebody's going to find that conversation. Do you also talk to your guests about how they can use that episode to their advantage, what to do with it when they're done with recording with you?
Oh, definitely. For no cost at all, I give them all the assets. I give them the video, I give them the audio, I give them shorts, anything that they want to, as a gift from me to them, for them spending the time with me to talk about their business. So I just don't believe in like paying. I mean, I don't pay me, I'm not going to pay you, but instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you assets to grow yourself. And then later on, if you want me to coach you on some other things, you'll think back to, oh yeah, I remember him. He helped me out. Wonder what he's doing. Things like that. but I really feel that giving is a lot better than receiving.
Well, and giving, so you are on twice a week. Did you say that?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's pretty impressive. Is there a method to twice a week? Why twice a week?
Because once a week wasn't good enough. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so I actually came up with an idea for, well, okay, I got the idea from a book I was listening to from Pat Flynn. And basically what it is a way to record, have somebody hit a button and record like an answering machine, and then I get that as an MP3. So when I get those recordings that come into MP3, all I do is just stick them in specific areas, and I could put that podcast together in like 20 minutes. And if I could do that in 20 minutes and then have an actual podcast of about 20, 25 minutes of people giving literally just advice. It's undiscovered advice is what I call that. It's a segment that I have in my podcast, comes out every Friday. And if I'm able to do that so quickly and so easily, why wouldn't I want to put out a second podcast during the week?
Yeah, no, that's a cool feature. So, and I copied that feature from your website. Do you remember I sent you a message and I said I saw your do we call it a widget? Is that what that is
I
officially?
think so. I'm not very technical if you couldn't tell, you know. Yeah. I was actually listening to it the other day, yesterday too, which was actually kind of funny.
Right. So, one of my favorite podcasts is No Stupid Questions.
Mm.
And they have a call to action at the end of their podcast that says, if you'd like to hear your voice on the podcast, we encourage you to make a voice memo, hold the phone close to your face, and then email it. And that is really easy. But ever since that, thinking about how to do that with my audience, I'm thinking there's got to be something really simple. Somebody can just click the button. So it's a little plug-in, if it's the word I'm using, as well as widget, right? That you can stick on your website. And it was really easy. So if someone's listening right now and is an entrepreneur and wants to just give you some unsolicited advice, can we do that too?
Absolutely. So if you go to tuepodcast.net/advice, that goes to basically a website where you just push the button. It has instructions how to do it, but it's really easy. You push a button and you have up to 5 minutes to give me the best advice you have for a new entrepreneur.
Announcing a course for therapists starting a private practice. The affiliate link is on dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. This is an affiliate ad read brought to you from the Walker Consulting Works studio. My name is Elizabeth, host and producer of the Dear Business Coach podcast and producer at Walker Consulting Works. And Dr. Brianna Willie is a former guest of the podcast. She was a guest back in February talking about her coaching business. She helps private practice owners. She helps people who are in the helping business. Now, right now, Dr. Brianna Willie wants me to tell you that Attainable Vision is offering 50% off her course for starting a private practice. And she says, because it feels like summer. So this is a course for therapists who want to start their businesses. And she's offering half off right now for a summer sale. And visit dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. Find Dr. Brianna Willie's affiliate link there in the bright, beautiful purple square that says starting a private practice.
And it's from a company called SpeakPipe is the name of what does, that puts that together. And ever since I've been doing that, it's been so easy for me to be able to put out that second podcast. And with my editing skills I have, it just makes it super simple.
Okay, so now do you have a secret talent for editing?
So I have something that most podcasters don't have. I love editing.
Oh, okay.
Most podcasters I talk to, the first thing that comes out of their mouth when I talk about process is, I hate editing.
Mm.
It takes so much time and so much effort to come out with something like that. But I've gotten the process down so quickly that I can edit a hour podcast in about an hour and a half. And probably less time than that if I really want to kind of get, if I don't care too much about the nitty gritty stuff, I could probably do it in less time than that.
So did you start with editing, like in your general editing experience? What were you editing podcasts before you started your own, or how long have you been editing material and what have you been editing?
So my editing didn't start until I started the podcast because then I had something to edit, and
Hmm.
I edited with Audacity, which is a free platform, and I just kind of, I don't know. I just started working with hotkeys and started clicking in the right places, and I started recognizing the waveforms and what those waveforms actually means. Like I could recognize an and ah and a ha and a in a podcast without even having to listen to it. I can, oh, that's an ah. We don't need that, so we're gonna edit that out instead of having to go back, listen to it, and then come back to it, and then listen to it again. Did I get rid of it? Does it sound good? And that kind of thing. I just started to recognize these little tidbits. And then when I started my editing, when I get into my really hardcore into my editing, I go into a zone and I start realizing that I can do this quickly in a less amount of time because it's in something I call my zone of genius. And when you're in your zone of genius, you start feeling this flow. And suddenly time starts to be different. The placement of your brain starts to be different. You start to focus really, really hardcore into what you're actually doing. When you know you're doing that, you know you're in your zone of genius. So editing's in my zone of genius, obviously, because I love to edit. And then talking to people's in my zone of genius too, because I realize when I start talking to my people, an hour has gone by. It only feels like it's been 10 minutes. And like, where did the time go? So that's how I know that's in my zone of genius as well too. And that's how I'm able to put all these different things, so many different things in such a small amount of space and time because it's in my zone of genius.
Well, that's fascinating. I don't know that I would call podcasting my zone of genius per se. I'm here because I like to be, but I will say that I'm noticing that when I'm done with a recording, like when you and I get off the phone here, when you and I get off the Zoom here, it's for about an hour. I'm going to be, it's going to be a kind of a high. I'm going to have all kinds of new ideas. I'm going to have a notebook nearby, right? Because I'm going to feel a flood of ideas. And so, so you're able to pull together some artistic formats and find your zone of genius. Just magically these formats go together, right? If you can speak and ask questions and not be afraid of using some free editing software, you can do this. You can have a podcast. So that's really inspiring. And maybe one thing I'll ask you to maybe divulge with me a little bit here is in your editing process, when you learn how to get from figuring out free software to getting quick about it. I may not have the talent that you do for getting down to the nitty gritty really quickly, but I'm finding I can edit an episode quickly, but then what happens is I go back and I rewatch it and I find all of those little mistakes. And now I'm re-editing a couple of times and I'm starting to figure out that I need to rethink that process. Any pointers for that?
Yeah, so that's called paralysis by analysis,
Okay.
right? So what's happening is you're so into perfection and afraid that something's going to be wrong or different if you don't go back and listen to it again, that something bad's going to happen. And as true as that is up here, that's not the reality of it. The reality is the people that are going to listen to you that want to listen to you for you, no matter, even if I'm not going to say even if it sounds horrible because that can be a bad thing, but even just going through it one time and then putting that out there and then maybe start talking to some people that listen to your podcast and get some feedback from it. Hey, how did this sound to you? Hey, it sounded great. It was perfect. There was nothing wrong with it. Even though in your mind you goes, well, I thought there was something wrong with it, but if they don't think there's something wrong with it, then it's okay. I don't have to keep going back because the perception of the people that I'm talking to thinks it's great. So why don't I keep up with that? And that's why I started to shorten my time by not trying to make it perfect. That's how I went from 4.5 hours to edit an hour podcast to an hour and a half because I stopped trying to be perfect. Okay. Once you can get through the fear of not being perfect, then you see your time get shorter and shorter. Do you have to edit all the ums and ahs and the whats? Not really, because if you do that, people sound more robotic. They don't sound human because in human nature, in human speech, we say ums and ahs and breathes and whatnots, right? Why would we not want to be human when we're putting out the information that we're putting out? We want to be human. We want to be us. We want to be our authentic selves. If we can't be our authentic selves or even sound authentic, why are we even going to listen?
Right.
Right?
Well, so that's who you're trying to attract, not trying to, you are, that's a theme very strong with your guests. You very quickly get your guests to just kind of relax into the chair and talk to you and not be perfect. So we're getting a lot of background stories, a lot of history from your guests. And I find myself listening to your guests like, hey, I'm in the same seat that they are. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that your guests don't have experience that came before this new business venture. It's that your guest is possibly not maybe they're new at expressing, they're expressing themselves to the marketplace. Would you say that's fair?
Oh, definitely. Every once in a while, you get somebody that's only been. I actually had an interview last month. It's going to be coming out here pretty soon, where literally they were very tense. You can actually hear it because all they would do is answer the question, but not elaborate on any of their stories. So what I did to make them relax is elaborate on one of my own personal stories that I had about that particular subject. Once I was able to do that, they were able to relax in turn because they realized we were there to tell stories. We were there to just be there to chat, just to have a cup of coffee with, however you want to put it. And they were able to relax enough to actually, okay, now it's okay for me. So, he's going through the same thing I am, or I'm going through the same thing he is. It's okay to talk to him because he understands. And that's kind of the feeling I want to be able to have with the rest of my guests is to have them understand that, hey, I'm new too. So I'm going to understand what you're going through because I'm going through almost the exact same thing. I'm a new entrepreneur myself too. In all, ways you can think about it. I mean, I have been doing this for almost 3 years, but there's a big difference between 3 years and like 13. I'm still considered new, right? Okay. I want to make sure that's clear. But having that capability to pull somebody out of their shell and have them talk about not just about their business but themselves too, because we want to know the people that we talk about, the people we talk to, the people that we deal with, and know that we're not this some corporate entity or something like that. I'm a human.
To tell us one more time where we can find you.
Okay, so you could find me on my website, tuepodcast.net. You can find me on Linktree, LANKTR. That's all, folks. Let me try that again. TUE LANKTR.ee/DJ SKoob, DJ SKoob. That's how you can find me anywhere. I do have a YouTube videos of my podcast. You can look me up there under the same name, Undiscovered Entrepreneur. And we're going to have a lot of new stuff coming out this year, so keep an eye out for it.
All right. Well, awesome. Thank you for coming to the Dear Business Coach podcast today. And Jesse, I will be contacting you to see if I can get on your show.
Absolutely. 100%.
All right. All right. Take it easy.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me today. My name's Elizabeth, coming to you from the Walker Consulting Work Studio in Floyd, Virginia. This has been an episode of Dear Business Coach.